Hello there, Qckslvrslash, and it is another week and another operation, and I get to make up a bit for last night's video, where I discussed the tier 6 ships that could be used in rank, and I completely forgot the Molotov. So here it is, and, this will give everyone a chance to see how the Molotov plays a bit, and they can make their own decisions. This is going to focus primarily on the new mission, Aegis, and basically what it is you've got to go rescue your convoy and then escort them. So you kind of sail towards first contact. It'll be over here in the Echo 6-7, and as you're fighting them, a new group will spawn kind of in this Delta Charlie 3-4 area. Now once you've dealt with them, up in kind of Alpha Bravo 6-7 spawns your convoy, surrounded by a fleet of enemy ships. You've got to go engage them. After you've killed them, your convoy will start sailing for safety over here where Cap Charlie would normally be. Once they get there, you've succeeded. In addition to trying to save the convoy, you've got some friendly ships you've got to look out for. There's this shores that you have to protect, and there is an AI Mahan. Now, one of the things that can make this tricky as you go for that final push is a number of enemy carriers spawn, which makes cruisers pretty effective at this mode. Personally though, the one that I 5-starred, I died pretty early on because I had a Qckslvrslash on my team that cut me off and basically pushed me into a bunch of torps. So I got to watch a couple of my buddies finish the game off. But you can see what the Molotov is capable of, these big 180s punching in to those enemy cruisers who are pretty much always side on. I played this a couple times, and every single time they basically sail straight south like that. I also have to apologize for Hunter making a bit of noise. He's being a big baby. I just gave him a bath, and well, he's not a fan of all the stink that I wash off. And so once again, Molotov, side on target, he's gladly going to take that. Unfortunately, that one didn't result in the citadels he's been getting before this, but he'll get out of that alive, and there's torps. A lot of things to pay attention to, and it's about now that I kind of expect to see that fleet spawn, and there it is. Up in Charlie Delta, kind of 3-4, you've got a whole fleet spawning in. The Isuzuchi, the first spotted, but I promise you there's more there than that. One of the other secondary objectives at the start here is destroy 5 ships in 5 minutes, and really, that one's not tricky. If you push into this area as a group, like this team has, you can see that just gets achieved. There's really no need to super concentrate on it. Now the second fleet, I find is best dealt with by a destroyer. You can do a lot, and really to me you don't want to sail around to this side of the islands. I personally stick kind of in that 4-5 line out to the west, deal with them before sailing into the eastern half of the map, because as you round these mountain ranges you take yourself out of the action for a bit. And you can see that our friendly here has noticed that. And I should mention who this is courtesy of. It's Bad Panda 15. I kind of missed that at the start of it. He'll recognize the game though. So Bad Panda knows he can't go sailing around that corner, so he's staying still, taking the shots he has. Now, the friendly convoy has spawned, and this is where you've got to start really kind of making up your mind. Honestly, the biggest threat I've ever seen to them has been friendly ships firing careless torpedoes. The enemy ships don't do a lot about them too early on. They're, as you can see, escorting this fleet of ships. So they don't, they're not attacking them. It's not like the Lexington in last week's mission where the second it spawns, there's enemy ships there to kill them. So take your time. Deal with the fleets one by one. And I really do wish the friendly destroyer who died in the form of, I think it was a Podolsky, had gone up to torp this Isuzuchi. It's the quickest way to get rid of that ship. And they kind of threw themselves away, which is a little unfortunate. But the Mayhan and Shores, despite being bots, can do some decent work in this mode. Now, what will happen is as you kill this Isuzuchi and start working on this fleet, when you've freed the fleet, a bunch of enemy ships are going to spawn in, basically all along the A-line here. And if I recall, there's 3 carriers, at least the times I've seen it, it's been 3 carriers, and you really want to focus them down quick. Now, one kind of spawned in this area for me, and then the other 2 kind of spread out over here. So we'll see where they spawn for Bad Panda's team, but they're going to be spotted. They're kind of in that range where they're more than likely going to be spotted early on, so you really do want to take care of them because they unleash a hellstorm of torpedoes that not only threaten your friendly ships, threaten all those ships you're trying to protect, and can really mess this game mode up. But beyond that, I find it's a pretty easy mode. Now, Bad Panda's definitely a little cheeky here. He's been sitting side onto that Isuzuchi, but it is a low-tier battleship, so there's not a lot it can do. And now it's burning. You kind of hope it's dealt with. Meanwhile, the rest of his fleet, primarily the Mahan and Shores, 2 ships you're trying to protect, have pushed up and started engaging this enemy fleet that you've got to attack. And once again, nothing too hard here. You can see it's a mix of ships. We have a Kuma, there's another Kuma, I believe it was an Aoba, Miyoko, Furitaka. So some 4s, 5s, 6s, and a 7. And really that's nothing a group of 6s can't take care of. Unfortunately, Bad Panda's team just lost another ship. And this is where kind of dealing with things as a group I find very important in these operations. And maybe that was intentional on Wargaming's part, to teach people to play as a team and move as a team. Because in this mode, if you stick together and focus down targets, it's really easy. If you break apart and everyone does their own thing, it can be tricky. It shouldn't be, but it can be. And the enemies actually do a really good job of focusing ships down, so you can lose friendlies quickly. Especially when your bots, like this Mayhan and Shores, kind of go charging in. So if you're not up there to do the work, they're going without you. And you can see the Mahan getting in nice and close. Probably going to drop some torps there on the Miyoko and take them out. So while you do have to protect that Shores, the other bot you get and the Shores, they do work. Kind of like Bad Panda. Finally getting another Citadel to his name, the side of his Furitaka, and just finishing him off with another 3 Citadels, which is a reason the Molotov is going to be a good ship in ranked, if you have it. It's a premium ship. I completely forgot to mention it because I don't have her. I can't afford to buy everything, and it seems I just kind of forget about ones I don't have. So you can see that that enemy Isuzuchi is still alive, just hanging in there. He's repaired a bunch of damage, and that's a great hit. Almost 6,000 AP right into the side of the BB. That'll finish him off pretty quick. One more like that, and he's going to be a goner. But the second he goes, the storm begins, because get ready for the enemy ships to spawn. You can see where you're trying to escort all the Liberties to. Delta 10 here. And you do have a friendly Saipan that spawns in, which is very helpful. But there's no shortage of torp bombers, and I think the carriers get them up a little quicker because it is a mode. Fortunately, Bad Panda's in a cruiser, has that defensive AA, and the gunners are earning their keep in this one. Just shooting at everything. Unfortunately, doesn't mean he's going to dodge all the torps. Eating one there, but the dispersion of the next group opens up a big enough hole that he'll slip through. And he just shot down a bunch of planes. So in this one we've got the Zuiho and Hosho nice and close together, and I think there's a Ryuju kind of in Alpha 8. And if you can get that Ryuju spotted, get rid of it quickly, because once it's gone, the Hosho and Zuiho have no chance against this Saipan. And of course, more torpedo bombers overhead. And you can kind of see why. Maybe it's a good thing that there's not a whole ton of carriers in battles, because a lot of planes can really do a lot of damage. Now, if you are forward thinking and you have a destroyer left, he can pretty much go up to that spawn, and the second they spawn in, they're spotted, throw some torps, and they're dead, and because you're in a DD, you're gonna slip between the carrier's torps pretty effectively. So that's one strategy, and that's what we did. I was playing with Frog, and he basically knew what to do. He knew the game mode better than I, and he went straight to where they were going to be. They spawned in, he dumped torps into all of them, and just ended the air threat. Speaking of air threat, here comes the next drop, and just look at that, 5 enemy torpedo bomber squadrons, all active in the air, dropping at various targets. So as you finish the first batch of carriers off, like I said, it's important to get this Ryoju out, because once it's gone, the Saipan just kind of starts going to work. And I don't know if it's because it's bot on bot, but the Saipan really does a pretty decent job of landing torpedoes into various ships. Speaking of which, these enemy carriers have done a half-decent job of getting some damage into Bad Panda. And he's been so busy dodging torpedoes, he just hasn't had time to fire at the spotted Ryoju. But now that the torp threat is temporarily at bay, it's time to pump citadels into the side of a carrier. And in every single game I've played, that carrier's never sailed anywhere. So you guys may have a different experience, but it's always just been stationary for me. And maybe that's partly because of how close your whole fleet gets to the enemy ships, that's what they become concerned with. Now, they're running out of friendlies. They've got an Arizona, Bad Panda, and a New Mexico who's way in the back. The Mahanan shores have retreated, which is good. You don't have to worry about them as much. I've never really run into a problem with the shores dying. As long as you're kind of there with them fighting, it plays half decently smart. It doesn't go sailing out to suicide. And Bad Panda picking up an HE Citadel with that one, as once again, more torpedoes coming his way. And the torp drops can be immensely annoying. But the carrier is almost done, which will free them up, and you can see how all these ships are starting to focus on one guy, and that is Bad Panda. And in my experience, that's exactly what happens. He finishes the Ryoju off as he receives a torp drop, ducking between them. Fire gets lit, instantly puts it out because he doesn't have a lot of health. Takes a long-range shot, the HE he had at the Yubari, and the game ends.
And there it is, the precious 5 stars for Operation Aegis. And honestly, this one's not as hard as last week's, and I think it's because you don't have to kill everything. The mission is protect those Liberty ships, and they get to that cap pretty quick, so as long as a couple of you are left to fight down the carriers, the shores and Mayhan, they really help you out, and you can take out a couple of the enemy ships that spawn, you're golden. The Liberty ships will get to their safe point, and you finish it. Now in this one, Bad Panda did a great job, I thought. 368,000 credits, 4,100 experience, got a couple of the tokens for the operations, 156,000 damage, 4 kills. I mean, you expect a lot of damage and kills in this mode because there's just a lot of ships to shoot at, but he also showed off the Molotov, so I hope it makes up for missing it as one of the ships to consider for ranked. And Bad Panda leads his team to victory in this one, topping out, and I can guarantee a big part of that experience is all those planes he shot down. And that's really the only tricky thing. And a lot of it can be mitigated if you bring a destroyer in your division, send them to where that Hosho spawns, and just torp them the second they spawn. It's not hard to predict that one, and it really makes the match a lot easier. As far as damage, well, he did a bunch to a lot of targets. He was putting citadels into all those cruisers, and that's what the guns on this ship can do, and it's why it's a good ship. As far as the mission goes, though, just act like a team, you know, support one another, talk in chat, say, hey, I'm going to go do this. In the defense of Newport, one of the big issues is it seemed like everyone on the team wanted to do the same thing. And it was always, oh, I'm going to go protect the Lexington. So half your team sails away to a Lexington that hasn't even spawned, letting the enemies walk right into your base. This one works a little better because it flows kind of naturally and guides you through the enemies as you're advancing. And I think that's what makes it easier. You're not trying to defend a point, so you don't get people camping. Everyone's happy to progress to the next spot to engage enemies. Anyways, I hope this one helps you out. Seeing one game through to completion, it shouldn't be too tricky for everyone to get 5 stars on this one. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you all later.